Hi, I'm Harmony Davis with Global Connections, and I'm joined by WSU Executive Chef Jamie Callison, and we are excited to have his expertise tonight as we get some tips and strategies on a stress-free Thanksgiving. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to him. As you're watching along, feel free to send your questions in the chat box, and we'll be able to share those with Chef as he's cooking. Thanks for your time.
Well, welcome to my kitchen. I welcome you to the Marriott Teaching Center. Again, the executive chef here, and I teach culinary arts. I want to talk a little bit tonight about a stress-free Thanksgiving. One of the things we talk about in industry is mise en place. That means everything in its place. And I use that at home, too, for when I'm cooking. And when I wake up on Thanksgiving morning, the last thing I want to do is cut onions, cut celery, garlic, and all those things. I want all that stuff ready. So the night before, or the day before, I'll cut my celery, my onions, my sage, prepare my Brussels sprouts, have my bread prepared for my stuffing, my cornbread muffins. I even will cut my potatoes. I want to watch a little bit of football on that day, and also watch the parade, and maybe about 1 o'clock have a glass of wine too. So, so having all this mise en place done is very important. For the turkey itself, I like to also use small turkeys. It's really important. When you get into a 22-pound turkey or a 25-pound turkey, the meat starts to get a lot more porous and dry. So the smaller turkey is definitely a lot more moist, a lot more tender, and a lot better product. So I'll cook 2 turkeys. I'll start with just basically, my company's everything seasoning, but it's basically an all-purpose seasoning. You can use salt and pepper, a little butter on there, and then I'll roast this. And a big part of having a turkey come out really tender is basting. So I'll start with the homemade stock in the basting part. You don't want to use a stock with a lot of salt in it, because salt can start to pull out some of the moisture in your turkey. So if you're not going to make your own stock, there's some good quality products out there that you can buy. I'm not saying that this is by far the best product, but there's quite a few different local, even Northwest companies that are producing stocks that have low sodium or no salt added at all. And so when you're cooking with something, and if you're going to go to a product like this, you want to get something with no salt, preferably, so that you can control the salt at the end. So with cooking 2 turkeys, I cook one the day before, and then I'm able to make my own stock. And if you look here, this nice rich stock that I have here, this is basically just roasted turkey, roasted vegetables, and it really gives me my foundation for my Thanksgiving day. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my cooking the 2 turkeys, which most people think that I'm crazy, but it really makes my Thanksgiving a lot easier to accomplish. So what I do is I cook the turkey the day before, cool it down, wrap it up, and then right before service, say 20 minutes before we're going to eat, I'll take my turkey and I'll slice it, have my dark meat over to the side, and then I pour hot turkey stock over the top of it. And what this does is this allows the turkey to absorb this chicken stock, or the turkey stock that I made, and it's going to add flavor and tenderness to it too. So we're going to cover this with foil, and we're going to put it in the oven for about 15 minutes at 350 degrees. So what this allows me to do is when I wake up in the morning, I have my turkey stock done. I'm able to start using that stock, not just to reheat my turkey, but to make my stuffing and to make all my Brussels sprouts and different items too. So I can start with this incredible. As a chef, I really believe in starting with a good stock is a huge part of a successful meal. So I'm going to talk a little about gravy. If we're going to talk about stock, we might as well go into gravy. I have taken, when I made my stock, I chilled it, and I was able to take the fat off the top after it chilled, and I used that fat for the fat in my gravy. So we're basically making a roux. A roux is 50% by weight flour and an oil. And the oil that I'm using is the actual fat from the turkey. So I have my fat in here. I'm adding my flour. And I'm going to cook this until it turns a light golden brown. What I've also done is, with cooking my turkey the day before, I'm able to use the neck meat. And so I cook the neck meat with the turkey, and actually we'll cook both necks at the same time, the same one that I'm gonna use the next day. And I'm able to use this neck meat for the kind of to enhance my gravy. I believe for Thanksgiving Day, gravy it can cover up a lot of mistakes too, right? So, but gravy is a huge part of your Thanksgiving meal. So we're cooking this roux. And we're normally going to cook this for about 5 minutes, but because we're live, I definitely have, we already, it's cooked enough, but I really like to cook it for about 5 minutes really low, and it kind of cooks out some of that flour flavor and kind of adds a kind of a nutty flavor to your gravy. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my stock and I'm going to pour a little bit of it into the roux. And what this does is it allows me to kind of create a paste. And by creating that paste, I'm going to have no lumps. So it's really important to work out those lumps. Then I'm going to pour a little bit more stock in there. And I'm going to continue mixing this. And I'm just really trying to work out these lumps in here. Then I'm going to add the rest of my stock. And it's very important to turn it, to get it to the boiling point. You do not want to boil it very long, but you want to get to the boiling point. When you're thickening something with a roux, you have starch. The starches need to cook. They need to get to a certain temperature to the boiling point, and then they start to expand, and that's what thickens your sauce. So if you add a roux to something, or add something to a roux, and you never get to that boiling point, you're going to have this flour flavor, this background, and that kind of gives you an off flavor to your gravy. So we're going to bring this to the boiling point. And what I've done too here is very important not to add salt and pepper until the very end. And the reason is because you're actually using some of your stock and some of your roasting liquids. Kate, can you pull out the liquids? Some of your pan drippings, which can have some salt in them. The stock that we use has no salt added, but it's very important.
Chef Jamie, can you make the gravy the day before, or will that affect the flavor?
Actually, you can. You definitely can make the gravy the day before. The nice thing about, even for me, I'm making it early that morning, and I can have that setting warm and ready to go. So if you do it the traditional way, where you're pulling your turkey out of the oven and you're trying to use the pan drippings, which I have right here, and make your gravy, that's when the guests are showing up. You really want to be relaxed. And cooking the two turkeys and making the stock, this really allows you to be relaxed, watch a little football, have some fun with friends and family, and not be so stressed. The true key to an amazing gravy sits right here in this pan. This is all the drippings and everything. And I've added some stock to this. And if you can see on the bottom right here, this is all the drippings and everything. Without this, your gravy is just a regular gravy. I mean, once we add this to our gravy, your gravy will be one of those ones that people will talk about. I mean, this is absolutely amazing. And again, this does have a little bit of salt and pepper. When you're seasoning your turkey, make sure that you don't season it in the pan that you're cooking it in. You want to season it in a separate pan so you don't get too much salt in here, or this will make your gravy too salty. So as you can see, after I added that stock in here, I'm able to really work off all of those pan drippings. So now we have two things. We have a clean pan, which makes everybody really happy that's doing the dishes, because all those drippings came right off, right? And we're able to put that right into our gravy. And now we've brought this to the boiling point. We've turned it down to a simmer, and we're going to let it cook for about 15 or 20 minutes. Then I'm going to add my neck meat in here. I have heavy cream for Thanksgiving. It's okay, right? So I have some heavy cream that I'm going to add in here too to give it a little richness and a little salt and pepper. Now I'm going to go to our mashed potatoes. For our potatoes, for the best mashed potatoes, I like to use, of course, a Northwest russet potato. They have high starch content, and they really create the best mashed potato. A lot of people use Yukon Golds or red potatoes, and they're all great. But if you want that really light, kind of fluffy mashed potato, the russet's going to be the best. Give me my wire whisk back. So I have my potatoes that I've cooked off in cold. We start them in cold salted water. We've cut them into pieces, about 2 inches big, and I cooked them till they were fork tender. And not just fork tender. When you say fork tender, you think about putting the fork into something and it goes in easy. You want it to actually be a little bit more than that. You want it to where it's actually going to mash where it's easier to mash the potato. So when after I cooked them, I put them in a strainer. And you want to do this. You do not want to put wet potatoes into your mixer and mix them up, because that's going to create a kind of a strange texture for your mashed potato. So I have my potatoes in here. I have my paddle attachment.
Me?
Yes?
Does the size of the potato matter while they're cooking?
It does a little bit. I like not to cut them too small, because you can add too much moisture can get into the potato. If you overcook your potato, a lot of water can get into that potato, and again, it's going to create this weird, you're going to get rid of that nice starchy content to your mashed potato. So definitely not cutting them too small is helpful. And then also when they're done and you start to cook them, it's helpful to have them a little bit of size to them, so when you start to mash them, you can actually mash them and they're not going to just move around in the mixer. So I have them in my stand mixer paddle attachment. Always started on slow. You can use a ricer like this if you want to ensure that there are 0 lumps. I do this sometimes, and sometimes I don't. If you follow the proper procedure and you don't add your your liquid in here, I'm already thinking about the wine for Thanksgiving. If you don't add your liquid in here, you're going to be able to create some friction pushing the potato up against the side of the mixer. And that's going to allow you to get rid of the lumps. If you add liquid in here right away, you're going to have lumps in your potatoes for sure. If you put it through something like this, you're for sure going to get out all the lumps. And you just put it in here. It's like a big garlic press, right? You put it in here and you push it through, and they come out at the bottom.
Amy?
Yes?
What's the best way to make mashed potatoes if you don't have a mixer?
Actually, the old-fashioned kind of presses that you have they just have the handle, they work extremely well, and I use those sometimes at home. Basically, they just have a handle, and they have almost like a little bit bigger holes than this in it, and you press it down, and you're able to really get most of the lumps out of it, and then you just add your hot liquid, and you can mix it with the wire whisk right in the pan. It works really well. Okay, so now I have my potatoes in here, and I've worked out the lumps. You need to make sure your potatoes are hot, too. I'm going to slowly pour my half and half in here. Make sure that it's on low speed. And I also like to do my mashed potatoes about an hour before guests show up. And the reason I do that is because, again, when guests show up, I want to be able to relax a little bit. If you do that, you want to make sure that you add enough liquid in there, because if you don't have enough liquid, your potatoes are going to seize up on you. You're going to have really stiff mashed potatoes. So now we're just going to add a little salt and pepper. And I'm not going to do this on right now just because I'm on live TV. Always taste your potatoes or your gravy or anything before you give it to your guests. Start with a little bit of salt and pepper and add more as needed. But it's really important not to just guess and throw it in there and everybody gets it around the table and it's too salty, and hopefully nobody's at your table is going to complain on a holiday. However, you want to make sure that it has great flavor and it's not flat. You don't want it over salty, but you don't want that flat flavor. You want to showcase the potato, and you need a little bit of salt to showcase that potato. And of course, a little room temperature butter in here always goes a long ways. And I always like to put a little bit of nutmeg. You can use just a pre-ground nutmeg if you like, but this microplaner works really well, and just a little bit of nutmeg in there. And then you have these incredible mashed potatoes. And again, you want them to be loose. A lot of times I see people, they'll make the mashed potatoes. I see this with my students, and even sometimes I do it. And you put them in a warmer, or you hold them where they're hot. A warmer works great in your house. If everything's cooked and ready to go, you can turn down your oven and use that to kind of hold your food as guests are showing up. But if your potatoes are dry, they're going to be kind of almost like a brick. And so you want to make sure you get enough moisture in there. Now, for every day, I'm not going to add half and half or heavy cream or butter to my mashed potatoes at home. A good chicken stock is an incredible alternative for a healthier choice for your mashed potatoes for a weeknight dinner. Thanksgiving? Yes.
Chef Jamie, just going back to the turkey, we had a question. How much stock would one turkey produce?
How much stock would one turkey? About probably 3 quarts of really good stock, because you want to cook that down. And actually, for a turkey too, when you're cooking a turkey, if you think about it, you get about a 1/3 yield of meat too. So if you get a 15-pound turkey, you're going to get about 5 pounds of meat too. So that's kind of a good way to kind of think about it for your guests. However, for Thanksgiving, you don't have leftovers. You'll get everybody angry at you, right? And speaking of leftovers, we're going to go into my famous Thanksgiving muffin here. This is something I created a couple years ago, and I really feel like this is probably one of my top creations of all times.
Chef Jamie, we have another question
Yes.
for you. Are there any foods you shouldn't cook the day before?
Vegetables, I wouldn't cook vegetables the day before. Just anything. I always look at it this way. If I can cook something and it's not going to negatively affect the quality of the product, and then why not? But definitely, if I'm serving Brussels sprouts, I'm not going to cook those the day before. You can definitely have those ready to go before your guests show up, and fire and put them back in the oven. Fire them in the oven is what we say in industry, but put them back in the oven right at the last minute and kind of refresh them. But yeah, definitely there's some things that I would not do. So what we have here is we have just a regular muffin tin. I have some leftover stuffing, some gravy, turkey, Brussels sprouts. What we're going to do is we're going to just lightly butter the inside here. And we're going to take our stuffing. You want to make sure that your stuffing is not extremely moist. I always say perfect, but you want kind of that perfect texture where it's not really soggy, but it has some texture to it. And we're just going to press that down in here. And we're going to form basically the crust, almost like you would for a pot pie. And I created this for a show I did here for WSU, where they wanted me to create something and make nothing else. And one of my favorite things that my grandma made was a pot pie. And then I love shepherd's pie, so why not put those things together and create this dish? And so we did this without using anything or making anything new, which is incredible. And we've had students now go home, cook the Thanksgiving meal the day before, and then actually they just make these in larger muffins, and this is what their family eats for Thanksgiving dinner. So I'm pressing down the stuffing in here, and you want a kind of a thin layer. You don't want it overly thick because you have to put some gravy and turkey in here. So I just simply press that down in here.
Chef Jamie,
Yes.
we have another question. Do you have a recommendation on an Italian wine you would serve with a Thanksgiving dinner?
Pinot Grigio or sweet wines sometimes go really well because you get all the sage and the herbs and stuff. I would stay away from. I take students to Italy every year, and I love the Italian wines. I would be careful about going with. Some of the super Tuscans that would have more of the Merlot and the Cab would be great. I'd be careful about going with anything that has too much tannins in it, because I think that the turkey. You can kind of overpower, and you can kind of negatively affect the tannins in the wine and actually kind of overpower the food. So definitely a kind of a smoother Cab, Merlot, But the sweeter wines are Riesling. Thanksgiving is one of those times where you can really go off and serve a lot of different types of wine and give people a selection. Whites go really well. Good Chardonnay goes extremely well with it. Pinot Grigio, a really nice Riesling, and Washington State has some incredible Rieslings. So we pressed our stuffing into here. Now we're going to add the best part, a little bit of the gravy. And then we have a little bit of our turkey here. And now, if you wanted to, you could put leftover yams in here, Brussels sprouts. You can put whatever you want in here. Also, one of the things about the day after Thanksgiving, and I'm a chef, but we all do it, right? We stand in line at the microwave to rewarm everything back up. You can do this in muffin tins, but you can also do it in a casserole. So you can actually put everybody's favorites right in there, bake it off, and you end up with this incredible casserole that you can serve the whole family with, and they don't have to stand in line at that microwave. And I know people are saying, well, you're a chef, why are you using a microwave? And it's because that's what we do, right? Sometimes leftovers. But this way, the stuffing gets that nice crust on the outside because we have the butter in here. So when it bakes, you get that great crust. You get the gravy cooked in with the meat, which kind of helps re-moisten that meat back up. And then you get those nice crispy potatoes on top. It really is a magical combination. You probably can't tell how much I really like Thanksgiving, but that's my family's favorite holiday. We just love getting together with people, but we also just love great food and sharing with people. So we're going to put a little bit of mashed potatoes over the top. And then we're going to brush this with butter. Again, finishing everything off with butter, right?
Chef Jamie, we have
Yes.
another question about beverage. Could you serve a Thanksgiving dinner with beer?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Again, I probably, just because of the, if you think about the richness of the stuffing and everything, I'd probably stay away from a really, really dark hoppy beer. I'd probably go with a lighter, kind of an amber or something that kind of, the Thanksgiving meal has so many different things going on the plate that if you pair it with something that's really big, either way, wine or anything, you could get into some complications. But if you pair with, like I said, a nice amber or something like that, or hef or something, I think you're going to have a better results because there's, again, so much going on the plate that my goal whenever I'm pairing food and beverage is not to have a train wreck. If you have a train wreck, and then it's a problem. However, you serve really good food with really good wine and kind of keep the balance, or beverage or beer, and keep the balance there with the type of, with the level of flavors, you're going to be successful. I think sometimes we overthink that too. I mean, I would prefer probably a red with Thanksgiving dinner, and a lot of people prefer a white. And I say if somebody wants a sweet Riesling, they should enjoy that.
Jamie, we just had a
Yes.
comment from a student who wanted to share, you're a genius.
Oh, nice. Well, that's a nice comment. I wonder, I paid them earlier to call that in, so we can move on this. So now we have these muffins. We're going to put them in the oven, and we're going to do that magic trick. And please don't do that at home. This was just put back into that oven. This would be extremely hot if you just pulled this out of the oven. I did that without gloves, so please don't do that at home. Kate, can I get the? So as you can see, they get this nice golden brown on here. This is truly a magical dish. This is one of those things that people absolutely love. Again, you can use the larger muffins pans for them, and it really creates a nice dish. This is kind of a nice if you wanted other things like your salads and stuff. But if you can see, you get this really nice crust on the outside. And I love my stuffing to have a little bit of crust to it. And in here, if this was extremely hot, when you cut it open, if you love chocolate molten cake, this is a great savory kind of molten cake right here. It absolutely is incredible. You cut it open and you have this nice gravy coming out of it. It really is a nice way to kind of enjoy those leftovers. And again, it works extremely well in a casserole if you want to do a bigger production of it. So for our gravy, just to finish it up, we're going to whisk this. I'm going to add in my turkey. My heavy cream. Then I'm going to add a little bit of salt and pepper. But then, of course, before I over-season it, I would definitely taste it.
Chef Jamie, we have a question about how much gravy should you prepare?
A lot. Gravy is one of those things, again, it works so well for leftovers. You know, if you think about why people are sitting down, they're probably going to eat about, there's so many things going on the plate, about an ounce a person for the dinner. However, we find that we go through a lot of gravy because, again, we make it for our leftovers the next day. So, I mean, I would figure probably a good 2.5 ounces per person would probably give you enough for leftovers and stuff. Because even though an ounce doesn't seem like a lot, the Thanksgiving plate gets to be very full of multiple different things. So I think probably in my household, if I didn't make 4 ounces a person, I'd probably be kicked out of the house. So just that the gravy is a way to really enjoy the leftovers too. So as you saw the importance of the mise en place, and again, I can't stress enough how important that mise en place is, and how taking that all that prep work the day before. So one of my goals, again, is to really have fun on Thanksgiving Day. So if we're serving deviled eggs are done in the refrigerator. Most of my pies are done the night before. Pies hold up really well for a day. And we make 8 pies in my household, which is a lot of fun. Even if there's only 8 people, we just figure it out, right? So it's always, pies are always good for breakfast. The more work you can get done the day before in terms of the prep, Thanksgiving should be an incredible day just to have with friends and family. So if you can see, I mean, this is just part of the Thanksgiving meal. We have our Brussels sprouts, our potatoes, our stuffing, and our gravy. And I would definitely recommend, I mean, if you're at home and you've never made a homemade gravy, to really try to make a homemade gravy. Even if you're having to buy a stock from the store. I buy stocks from the store, pre-made stocks sometimes, and I'm a chef, but I don't always have time to make stocks. The other thing you can do is use that stock to enhance the pre-done stock to enhance your stock that you're making for your Thanksgiving. So if you buy an unsalted stock and you're roasting your bones off or making a turkey, and then you take this and you take all the meat off of it and use those bones to make a stock, and you can use, to enhance that stock, you can use a pre-bought stock too. So, but again, really stay away from the ones that are heavily salted, or the bouillon cubes, because again, if you start with salt and you reduce salt, you're going to get extreme salt. So be very careful with that. So I would like to talk a little bit about the Crimson Spoon too. All of our Thanksgiving recipes are in here. This book was inspired by WSU, and it's been an incredible, it came out last year about this time. And when I first put the Savory muffin in the cookbook, and then all of a sudden the co-author and the designer of the book decided that we really needed a Thanksgiving chapter in the book. So that's where all of these other recipes kind of started going into play into the cookbook. And it was, they're well-tested, incredible recipes. And this book, the proceeds go to help support this facility. Marriott was wonderful to give us $1.5 million to give this beautiful kitchen, and the proceeds from this help keep this kitchen up and keep it looking like this and keep our students working here. And so we really appreciate your support.
Thank you, Chef Jamie, for your
You're
time.
welcome.
I know at home you cannot smell this, but it smells amazing. And just thank you for sharing your expertise with us. If you have any further questions, you can send them to the chat, as well as join us again for upcoming events. You can go to WSU or connections.wsu.edu. And also, if you enjoyed this event, Chef Jamie will be joining us again in February for another exciting meal. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.